economic interests might be one of the top. I mean, for instance, tobacco has been around since almost the beginning of the American, experiment or the American state, and the amount of money that gets pumped into, let's say, the tobacco-growing regions of the Southeast are phenomenal. And you have established, rooted interests that have strong political ties to lobbies, to people who legislate, et cetera, that becomes, to me, one of the primary issues. Although I agree with you that political and educational aspects are important as well. If you look at marijuana, and it was basically DuPont and the Hearst newspapers that created the illegality and the fear of something that had been a part of American life, at least, and European, back in the 1700s and 1600s. For instance, I read somewhere that the boats that carried the pilgrims across the ocean, their sails were made of their ropes, that's hemp, their ropes were made of hemp, their clothing was made of hemp. It was a huge part of life, and yet suddenly, in fact, in one of the world wars, World War I or II, I mean, there's only two of them, hemp, it was required to grow hemp if you had a farm. That part of history has been forgotten, and it's been forgotten for a reason. They don't want people to realize that a possible competitor to DuPont is something that's cheap and really, it's good for the soil. So education, knowledge of history, all plays a part in sort of making something popular like alcohol, as well as advertising, obviously, and also canceling certain things like hemp, which is now coming back into vogue. Although not so much for clothing, but for sails for ships, but more for just the getting high aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So,
No, it's quite amazing how a narrative can change from one extreme to another in a few years or decades. When we look back
when
in
the media
history.
gets hold of it, or look back in history, which is very difficult to do these days because history is practically not taught, at least not anything resembling what actually happened.
And the one that explains it can say it from their perspective, however.
Of course,
That's
Whoever makes the history creates the narrative, and the narrative then becomes the reality.